Hello to all the great people out there, the great scientist, the great writer, and even the great general. I am King Link, and today we're going to be looking at Sid Meier's Civilization 6. Oh Sid, your name still goes first. For brevity's sake, just for the video, I'm going to be calling it Civ 6, and we'll be talking about Civ 5 as well, the previous game in the series, Sid Meier's Civilization 5. Now you know why we use the shorthand and what it is. Before we begin though, if you enjoy this review, please consider subscribing. I run no ads on my site or channel, I don't take product placement, all I ask is that people who enjoy my work, give me a simple subscription, give me a like, give me a comment, or even tell other people about it or to subscribe if they feel like it. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate anything you do in that facet. On to Civ 6. So, admittedly, I'm running this review for people familiar with the Civilization franchise. I'm going to expect the player to have played Civ 5 in some fashion, and the reason is I recommend Civ 5 to this game. In addition, I could spend 30 minutes to an hour telling you everything that Civilization as a franchise is. It's a massive, awesome board game that changes each generation, but the fact is the people interested in this game should probably already be familiar with the franchise, if not the 5 other games in the series. And there'll be cheaper investments to check out than this game. So, to begin with, let's talk about what we're seeing here. I have here the base game of Civ 6. I'm running it clean with only the free DLC downloaded, and even then not using it. I'm not using the Rise and Fall expansion, so to be clear, much of what I say might be changed in the DLC. However, Civilization has been around for so many years, I hate the fact that the opinion seems to be you should have to buy all the expansions for it to be good. Or at least, that's what I keep hearing. I know there's some truth to this, that in Civ 5, and probably it will be true in Civ 6, however, that's not how the game should be sold, reviewed, and that's a problem if it is. So this is the base game clean. No workshop either. Now, this is going to be a long video. I'm going to try to speed through as much of it as possible, so I will go a little bit faster. I do go quite in depth in my written review, so if you want to know more, click the link in the description. So let's start. There's a number of major improvements, and again, not going deep in each one, but there is more in writing. There's districts, and these are ways to develop your city into different styles. If you want science, you can build campuses. If you want tourism, entertainment districts. Religion gets holy sites, and you build all of this on your hex grid. What you want your city to build towards will affect the districts that you are going to use, and you are limited in the number of districts you can choose until your city grows. Even then, you can't use all of them, so you have to make choices. Honestly, this is a big change to the game, and probably the reason to check out Civ 6. It's good, and it's an interesting change. In addition, food is no longer the king in this game, and instead there's this major idea of housing, which limits the size of your city. You no longer need to build one megacity, but no longer can. You're limited to the number of housing you can produce, and while you produce more in a number of ways, the size of the city is relatively limited. Honestly, I'm not a big fan. If you don't want to use food, which okay, go to housing, but you don't have to use both at the same time. You could have chose one or the other. Now, these two things change a fundamental piece of this game. In the old games, you build one megacity, and in this game, people are saying, and it's a good quote, build wide, not tall, meaning you want many cities instead of taking one or two big ones. The game no longer makes happiness based on the number of cities in a civilization and making it more based on amenities, and it's a good change. It improves quite a bit, but it's not actually explained to the user, and it's hard to understand without a few games under your belt. Guides online will talk about it all the time, and people helping you will of course mention it. Just go wide. Now, there's two other mechanics that got full overhauls. A lot of stuff gets full overhauled in this game, but these are the two that I want to talk about. The Civ 5 Gods and Kings DLC added religion to the Civ 5 game. Like I said, the DLC makes the original game somehow more complete. But it wasn't fully realized either in that game, and it was just an interesting concept. Here, religion is now a major mechanic, and it even has a victory condition built on it. You build up faith through holy sites and more, and then you can buy units that have battles with other units of in the religion system. It's actually a secondary battlefield on the same map with the same where you can see units moving next to you. Interesting, but it's actually kind of similar to the cultural victory in a lot of ways, just more visible. On the other hand, diplomacy is completely different as well. Civ 5 had the UN, and a diplomatic victory included using city-states to help you. I like that system. In Civ 6 this has changed. There's more diplomacy as you'll talk to other countries more, but mostly to hear them complain about you. You can't make big changes in the for every country. There's no UN projects, and city-states, just like envoys, they don't really do much more for you. There's also no diplomatic victory. Other civilizations have agendas, and if you go against them, you will get yelled at. Honestly, both of these changes aren't my favorite. I accept religion, but it's another military system that I'm not a big fan of, in any game really. But I want better diplomacy, and I'll explain that more in the AI, though without the diplomatic victory, I find it lacking, no matter what it was going to be. Roads and builders have also completely been changed. Roads are now built automatically when you make a new trade route between two cities, and that's the only way to build it. If you want a road between two of your cities, you better build a trade route at least for a short amount of time so that road can be built. Builders can now be used 3 times in the game, with the possibility of more through a couple of means, and they make permanent improvements to your hex grid. This is actually a more strategic system, but with the districts changes, I kind of understand the changes to the builders, and the builders give you kind of a variable improvement to the city. There also is a new government system as well, and honestly I dislike Civ 5's take on government. If you haven't played it, there's trees that you build out, and you can only access certain governments after you've finished another government with all its changes. Okay, so I'm really pleased to announce that the government here is more interesting. Sadly, that's because it's the same as the tech tree, with some twists on it, such as choosing your government and implementing different policy cards. It's actually a good system overall, and it's a step in the right direction, but I feel that the learning of it is too much like a science tech tree, and I wanted to see more. Those are the big changes I can think of. There's more, of course. Cities are easier to take, like easier battles there. I found myself in more wars. City-states are completely based on envoys, but spread their use to anyone who sends enough envoys to them, and so on. There's even a leader of a city-state and so on. So, I do want to talk a little bit about the feel of Civ 6. The biggest thing for me in this game is that it has distinct phases. The beginning of the game is all about exploration, and probably the most exciting part of the game, and it always has been. You don't know what civilizations are out there or what's going on, so you explore and eventually start building as many cities as you can get away with, and growing them towards your eventual goal, whatever it may be. The problem is that the mid and end games are different. Exploration is over, of course, at that point, and you start dealing with the other civilizations more. And by dealing, I mean talking to them about their demands and holding off a potential war, which is costly in lost production time mostly. The main problem I have with the mid and end game is that the production in this game is very slow. Technology and civics come very quickly, but if you try, you'll be able to master all the civics and technology in a single game if you have enough culture and science each turn, and it doesn't take that much to get that level. On the other hand, without the mega cities that Civ 5 had, production is very slow. A lot of features take 10 to 20 turns, and that's a lot, no matter how you cut it. It's a slowdown where you sit around and hammer next turn over and over, then wait 30 seconds before you hit it again. The other thing is that while you're waiting, the enemy AI will consider you and usually come around to insult you. There are agendas now for the diplomacy, and the agendas are a nice start, but the problem is a lot of enemies will complain about you in different ways. Are you talking to city-states? They might hate or like that. Do you have too many units? Not enough units? Not enough navy? Tourism? All of these might be reasons for the government, for the country to either hate or like you, and they'll tell you directly. You also might just have a different government, which is always hated. Not just incompatible ones like communism and capitalism, but even if you just advance to the second tier of governments, another country might go, I don't like you anymore because we have different governments. That's all it takes. Worse, the AI here is also kind of stupid. Even now, after the Rise and Fall DLC patches come out, which have affected the main game, supposedly to make it better, I just still find it lacking. Honestly, I don't like war in the game, but Japan was next to me in my first game and pestered me non-stop. They actually committed 3 different wars against me. Each one, they were the aggressor. On the first one, I decided to take one city, just to show them I could and try out the combat there. Then I took 3 cities. Then I took every city I could, including their capital. Because the difficulty was easy enough, and I was playing on an easy difficulty, I admit, but I was so technologically advanced that it was a joke. At one point I had anti-tank weapons, missiles, and actual tanks, and they had samurais and pikemen. The samurai they had 2 samurai that attacked 1 AT unit, the anti-tank unit, and they did like 30 total damage to me. I did 160 total damage to them in just those 2 attacks. And remember, these are attacks that they initiated by moving into me. Dude, you're gonna get messed up no matter how you are, and I already knocked you down twice. Why do they keep attacking me? Now, okay, maybe Japan is super war hungry, but something else also happened. I ended up taking their capital city, and this is actually a major achievement, and it's part of the domination victory.
Just a few words can change.
The problem is, the game started calling me a warmonger, and by that I mean other civilizations came around to tell me that. So, in a war I didn't start, and it ended by me taking their cities. I'm the warmonger. I didn't even want the war. I never denounced them. I never even talked to them negatively. I wanted to just build my city and be happy. And the problem is, every government, even the ones that used to be my friends, called me out on it. Why? Well, I looked online, and it's because the AI thinks that by capturing their cities, that's considered a warmonger tactic, even if I didn't start the war. It's annoying. Now, I could have gone around and destroyed all their improvements and so on, and that would have been acceptable according to the AI, but by entering their city so that I could capture it makes me the ass. In fact, this actually made Gandhi, the pacifist, so mad that he decided to attack me, which was laughable also because it took almost 30 turns for him to cross an ocean to attack me with 4 units or 5 units, and all I did is I brought up the 12 units I had in the current war, and I easily repelled them. Again, low technology on his side, easy win, but it was a laughably bad war. Now, this is already a long review, I understand that, so I'm going to wrap it up. After my first game, though, which took about 12 to 16 hours, I think, it took me a long time, I didn't feel like playing a second game. Games here take a long time, but honestly, they're a bit boring by the halfway point. I've heard online a lot of people claim that they just play the early game, and I understand that, but I wish the game was more interesting after that point, or at least gave me a victory that could be done in half the time. Some of those scenarios that you can download online will be 60 turns and base, but it's not the same as the main game. I did more, and you can see my game here, and it's better now that I understand more with the game, especially making more cities, but I still get bored playing with it. Eventually, I pick up my phone and play with it while I wait for the opponent to go, or just go make a sandwich in between turns because there's nothing to do, and it can take between 30 seconds to a minute. These are faster because I have less countries or leaders in the game, but with 8 people, it was easily 30 seconds or more every turn. Overall, though, I think there's a good improvements to this game. But there's also a lot of huge step backs, creating major annoyances, and most of the annoyances are stuff that should have been improvements or caught by QA. Honestly, the long turns, they are very long. The AI that pesters you, the slow production isn't as fun as it should be, and there's a lot more. Instead of saying one more turn, I felt like saying, ugh, I'm waiting again. You know, I thought a lot about the score, and I realized I could have given this game anywhere between a 2 to 3 depending on my mood. That's the difference between a recommendation or a non-recommendation, with the push in between at 2.5. The fact is, I thought a lot about this, and maybe I'm being nice, but I'm awarding Sid Meier's Civilization 6 a 3 out of 5. Maybe I'm going easy on it, and honestly, the districts is what saves this game for me and made me give it the 3. But it's just barely saving it. I don't know if I'm going to be coming back to play another full game anytime soon, and maybe one day I'll pick up Rise and Fall, the expansion, and it will improve the game, or the second expansion might too, but when I get a chance to finally get all that, I don't know. Honestly, this is a slight recommendation. Yeah, get this if you're a Civ fan and can get it on the cheap. It's not bad, but this should have been a lot better, and I'm always amazed at how clunky the Civilization games seem to be at launch. I will also say though, if you don't have Civ 5 at all, or just have the base game of Civ 5, maybe consider the complete Civ 5 edition, or Civ 5 Complete Edition. It usually goes on sale at a good price, and it's just a more complete experience. I might even prefer it to Civ 6, and I think I actually do. So with that bombshell, Civ 6 is in the bag. It's interesting enough at least to discuss it for this long, and honestly I enjoyed playing it somewhat. Coming up next, I'm going to be talking about Hyper Light Drifter. That's honestly, I sit here, I have no idea what I'll be saying about that game. It's one of the more unique and hard to describe games, but it should be a good review. Look forward to it. I'm King Link, and I am out of here.